Lincoln did not say that equality he had in mind was racial equality, but he did not have to, since class equality or gender equality or ethnic equality were not at the center of a great war. Freedom and equality are not contrary values for Lincoln, for freedom as a political value depends upon the mutual acknowledgement of free persons as persons. Freedom is agency, and agency happens only among moral equals, roughly like love. That is why, towards the end of the speech, Lincoln imagined that the fruit of the victory in a war about moral equality will be a new birth of freedom, the transformation of freedom into a deeper thing than the ability of the strong to exploit the weak without interference by a third party. The new birth of freedom can only be a new depth of acknowledgement, such as that later embodied in the 3 Reconstruction Amendments to the Constitution, whose actual contents Lincoln had not yet imagined, and which the Republic had no sooner articulated than it thoroughly betrayed. What the Civil War tests, Lincoln argued, is not only, as he might have said earlier, whether a government of the people would be able to preserve its stability, or whether it might fracture into smaller confederacies. The issue is not even, as Lincoln also said elsewhere, whether a minority can contest by force the majority's fairly won power to rule, whether the minority can claim by the bullet what it has lost by the ballot. The central issue from which all of the other issues depended was whether any government capable of making and keeping the promise of equality can survive. As the issue of slavery somehow underlay the issue of the tariff, of internal improvements, and of strict or loose construction of the Constitution, so under all of these other things at stake in the war, under union, under political stability, under majority rule, lay the issue of racial equality, somehow. Opposition newspapers were not slow to pick up the implications of Lincoln's first sentence. The editor of the Chicago Times, for instance, argued that Lincoln's embrace of equality and his call for a new birth of freedom did most foully traduce the motives of the men who were slain at Gettysburg, unquote. For those men did not die for the freedom of the slave, but for the Union and the Constitution, the old Constitution, 3/5 compromise, fugitive slave clause, and all.